Welcome to the seventh episode of Coffee42, which is titled Future Leaders. Today, I am joined with a special guest who is known for his remarkable style of leading people, leading them into achieving their work and personal goals. We're going to take a look into his history of leadership and take advices for the future leaders. Can you please introduce yourself?
Good evening, all of you. And first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Aziz bin Ali bin Muhammad Al-Amri, and I'm a retired HR professional. I've worked in various industries before I ended up in HR. Originally, I'm a biologist from the university. So I worked for the Ministry of Fisheries in the early 80s for 4 years. Then I moved to PDO. Then I went and worked for supply chain for 13 years. And then after the reorganization in 1996, I came by chance into HR because I was tasked with the task of building competencies for supply chain staff. So from there, then my name got wind to the HR director in PDO. At that time, he was Sleman Lemki. He's since passed away. May Allah rest him in peace. And so he called me, said, "I've got good news for you. I've had you're doing very well in terms of building competencies. So would you like to move to HR?" So I said, "Okay, fine. So what is in it for me?" He said, "Well, all I can promise you is development and progression, depending on how you perform." So I was happy with that, and so I moved to HR, and the rest is history. So I've worked in HR from 1996 until I retired in 2020. So in total, I've got 40 years of working experience in various fields, and eventually I ended up in HR. And my heart was really in HR because I love people, I love to talk to people, I love to train people. So that's where I ended up.
Thank you for joining us in today's episode. Let's get into the Q&A. My first question is, how would you describe your leadership style?
My leadership style varies with situations because there are theories about leadership styles. I think there are about nine that I've read about. But for me, my leadership style is to take people along with me. Okay. The thing is, when you have a team and the team respects you and the team knows that you respect the team, because when I have a team, my first value is to respect the team. I respect the team, and I allow the team to give me feedback as well. There's this misconception that you are the boss, no, we cannot give you feedback. But no, I invite feedback because you'll be surprised. You learn from people who are much younger than you about so many things. Okay, so I may have experience in certain things, but then you come in contact with a younger person who is more attuned with technology, and maybe they've read something somewhere, and they may say, "I've read about this, and this is the way they've done it somewhere else," and that gives you room to breathe and say, "Okay, let's explore that." So for me, my leadership style is to involve my team. I never did anything alone. As a matter of fact, I think I've got this fear of doing things alone because, first of all, I'm not a person who wants to claim credit personally alone. I would like to distribute credit to people. And therefore, I involve my team heavily. Just yesterday, I got a note from one of my ex staff who said, "Thank you very much, Muhammad, for allowing me to grow under your leadership." Okay. Today, when I sit in meetings, I sort of echo you, the way you brought us in. Okay. Even when, say, consultants came, I wouldn't just sit down with consultants alone, but I would invite some of my heads to sit in the meeting, to listen, to contribute, okay, and also to observe how I deal with those consultants, because I've done this before, and therefore for them it's much easier to see me in action and pass that knowledge to them. So my leadership style is really to pass the knowledge to people, take people on board, and people will follow you.
For our second question, do you think leaders are born naturally or made by slowly building up and learning how to lead? And may you justify your answer, please?
This question is very tricky, because people say leaders are born, and it's true. I agree that there are certain people who are born as leaders, and depending on where they grow up, in what families do they grow up. But I also believe that leaders can be made. Now, you have people who are natural leaders. They grow under the wings of people who are leaders. For example, let's take an example of the Ford family, who own the Ford Motor Company. Those people, their children, they grow up, they see their parents leading organizations, and they get exposed into that environment. So naturally, they grow up as leaders. But somebody who comes from a very, say, remote area, somewhere, uh, their parents are not that well off, they can be excellent leaders as well if they grow up and they want to develop the styles of leadership that will move organizations forward. You see, you have leaders and managers. Managers are very good at barking orders. They give you orders, you do it, and where's your deadline? Why do you didn't deliver? Leaders don't act that way. Leaders will go along with you. Leaders will check up on you. Uh, like for example, every morning I would go for a pulse check, called a pulse check. So I say good morning to them people. How's the family? How's everything? How's work? And people then feel comfortable. If they have any issues, then they can say, I've got an issue. And then you sit down. Can you resolve the issue there and then? Or you resolve the issue at my desk or somewhere else? And this is the way leaders act, because you check your pulse check, you do your pulse check in the morning with people. There are people who come at work maybe with a lot of frustrations from home, and you can sense, and then you can have a one-to-one conversation with them and find out what is the issue. Is the issue that can you be brought into the issue, and can you give solutions? But so for me, leadership is about involving people. It's not about separating people and say I'm the boss. First of all, I hated this word, boss. Yes, it's true, I'm the boss. I've got a certain title. Yes, fine. But then, in terms of working, we work together as a team. So we distribute responsibilities, and everybody knows what to deliver. And if they have any problem, then I say, I've got an issue. Can we talk? Can we discuss about it? Okay. So that's my leadership style.
The upcoming question is the one which I am most intrigued to ask. What inspired you to become the leader you are?
Huh. You see, my my late grandfather, Mohammed bin Aziz, for me, he is the mentor. Okay, he is the person who introduced me to all these values of respect and working hard for it. Okay, going after it. Okay, he always encouraged me to excel in what I was doing, and but he never wanted me to disrespect people. One day, back in Africa, I answered back to an older guy who worked with him from their younger days. And he didn't like the way I answered him. So he called me. First of all, he slapped me. And then he said, I want you to go and apologize to him. And I found that uh, a bit awkward, okay? Because he told me to go and apologize to an African guy. So I went and apologized to him. And that taught me respect. Later on, he called me and said, you need to respect people, irrespective of where they are, irrespective of, that they are working for us, but you have to respect them because they are human beings just like you and me. So from those values, it dawned on me that you need to respect people. And you know, naturally, I acted that way. And naturally, when I was growing up at school, people immediately say, when we select a monitor in class, they go, we select Aziz. So Aziz gets selected. In a team, they say, we select Aziz to be a captain of the team. So this thing started building up, and they started giving me confidence that yes, I can lead a team, I can lead my colleagues, people who are my age, I can still lead them, I can talk to them, and they can listen to me. Okay, so that encouraged me eventually to become the leader who I am today.
What strategies do you apply at workplace to foster a positive and productive workforce?
I think I spoke about bringing the team together. When we have an item to deliver and we have a team that will deliver that, I sit with the team, we make a plan, and we agree on who does what, and we agree on what are the deadlines, okay, for that task. And that has worked excellent for me because everybody feels respected, and everybody feels that they've got a part of the pie, if you like, to deliver to the organization. So when you talk to them, they believe in you. That's the strategy I use. You talk to them, they believe in you. When somebody and you announce his name, then they believe in you. And that's, for me, that's the simplest way of approaching whatever assignment. That's my strategy that I use. Yes.
I was wondering, what challenges did you face as a leader and how you managed to overcome it?
There are several. In a working environment, you meet a lot of different people who have got different values, people who see things differently, and there are people who are just bent on sabotaging whatever you're doing. Now, I've always believed that you never try to fight with people. I've believed in convincing people that what we are doing is for the benefit of you and me and the whole organization. Now, there are people who will, naturally in HR, you come up with a lot of initiatives in terms of people development. And I remember there was one time when we were introducing executive coaching in the organization. And some of these executives were not very happy with the word coaching, that somebody somebody else is going to coach them. This activity was going to be done by a different company, a consultant company. And the answers I was getting is that, what are they going to teach me? I've done this job for the last 25 years. So what are they going to teach me? And my answer is not to challenge them. My answer is to explain to them that these people are coming. It's not about teaching you the job, you know the job, but for them is to really look at your leadership style, leadership qualities. And then you will sit down with them one to one, and they'll give you feedback. And you are able to give your feedback as well if you don't agree with something. Okay. Eventually, uh, some of them accepted. Okay. And we gave them the freedom of selecting what consultant they wanted to use. So we gave them a profile of a consultant, that the profile has done this type of work for how long. And the results were quite positive. And from senior people, the results were quite positive. So the people underneath felt the pressure that if so and so at the top says this has been very beneficial, and it helped him to break his silo, because he felt he knew everything in the world. But then when you sit down with somebody who is watching you at the back, and then at the end of the day and say, okay, Aziz, uh, I think you could have approached this problem in this way. What do you think? And they give you options, and they tell you what they have observed. Because when you are deep into conversations with people, you forget about yourself. But then when somebody is sitting at the corner somewhere in the office and watching you and noting down what needs to be done properly, and then they give you that feedback, eventually people accepted that. So it was one of the major challenges, because we are bringing in executive coaching to improve the performance of our executives in terms of leadership. Okay. And then of course you get these smaller issues and in the team, people just feeling that, or maybe you are favoring that person, and you're not treating me well. You have different mentality of people, and people acting that they want more attention, and like a father figure, for me, uh, I had to sit down with them and treat them as equals, talk to them as equals, like my children, but as equals, that they can also open up and talk to me openly. So, I think, again, coming back again, is to involve people so that people can follow me, can go along with me.
Do you think leaders have specific characteristics or traits? And what are they?
I think two things I would say every leader has, okay, is respect and honesty. Okay. I have this guy, Jack Welch. Okay. This was uh, the guy who led GE to a very successful company in the US. And I've read him, and basically you know, without going into a lot of details, the basic principles for him is respect and honesty. If he went to visit a company, one of their companies, he would start from the guy who sweeps the floor. He doesn't go up to the CEO first. So he starts down, start talking about them, with them, and asking them. And then he goes up. Eventually he gets to the CEO. But then by the time he's at the CEO, he knows what is boiling underneath. If people have got any issues, people have got any complaints, he's already heard it from the horse's mouth, if you like. So it's respecting people. Yani he did not act as I am the biggest director of GE here, and the CEO of GE, General Electric, I mean, and therefore I cannot talk to people who sweep the floor, people who clean the toilets. No, he starts there, and then he goes up, he goes up. Eventually, when he gets to the CEO, he knows exactly what is going on in the company. So the CEOs always emulated him as well, because they know there is a day this guy is going to come and say, I've heard from the guy who sweeps the floor there that you're not doing this, you're not doing that. Yeah. So for me, two things: respect and honesty. I like people to be honest, make mistakes. I invite mistakes, okay? But don't repeat the mistake. If you do the mistake, then tell me. We correct it so that next time you don't repeat the same mistake, okay? So I invite mistakes, but then eventually it's you being honest and say, sorry, I I made a cock up here, okay? So we correct it together. So the bottom line for me is respect and honesty.
You have stated that leaders can be made. So, for my last question for you is, what is the best advice for a new leader?
My best advice for learning leaders is a clean your epaulette, okay? Those stars and stripes you have on the shoulder, take them out. Come down to the level of your people. They know you have a title. You carry a card which has a title. So your title will not go away. It will always be with you. It's in the system. People will recognize you in your email when you sign off, Aziz Al-Amri, and your title. Okay, your title is going to be there. Nobody is going to take it away. But then treat people like you want to be treated. Okay, so for me, I would say remove all those titles with you, then deal with people one to one. Okay, and be a teacher, a coach. One thing that has helped me is that I was once a teacher. Okay, after I finished high school in Zanzibar, I was sent to school, to one of the secondary schools, to teach biology and chemistry. So that, and I was mentored by somebody who took me along and said, I'll mentor you. So he mentored me into a teacher, and I had very good reviews of being the teacher. So I think that background has helped me, to love coaching, to love teaching people, not to go and fight with people, to sit down with people and solve problems together. So for me, my advice is that learn to be humble, okay? Learn to respect people and value honesty. Because if you demonstrate that, if you're honest with them and you respect them, they will return that to you. It's a natural human character that whatever you do, people will return that to you. And be humble, okay? Don't uh, expand your chest and say, I'm the boss here. You know, who wants to know that you're the boss? You're the boss anyway. But then, in terms of human relationship, there's no boss. There is humanity, and therefore, I would say, come down to the ground level, talk to people nicely, respect them, okay, and be humble, and then accept feedback from them. As I said before, you'll never know where you learn because they never stop learning. So you can learn from a very young person, a person of your daughter's age or your son's age or even your grandchild's age because they've seen it somewhere else where you haven't seen it. Okay, so accept that. But then, okay, have a discussion about it. Can we take it on board? Okay, is it valuable for the project we are doing? So finally, what I would say is that uh, humbleness brings a lot of people along with you. People follow you because you're humble, you're respectful, you respect them.
I think our time is up for today. Thank you for joining today's episode.
Thank you very much for inviting me to talk about leadership.
I've learned a lot just by listening. I can't imagine what I can learn and achieve by implementing those advice. I hope everyone listening to this episode learned a lesson or two at least. We need great future leaders like Aziz Al-Amri to lead the future generation in the right path. Thank you again for joining me today as a special guest.
Thank you very much.
And I hope we get to see you in the future in more episodes to learn more about your advices. Thank you for tuning in, and please make sure to recommend topics you'd like to hear us speak about in the future.